It was late evening at the music conservatory. The sky outside had turned gray, and only a few dim lights were left on inside the tall building. The sound of mops moving across the shiny floor echoed through the hallways. Arif, the old janitor, was cleaning the last classroom before closing time. Beside him, his teenage son quietly helped, carrying a bucket and wiping the chairs. They worked there every night after the students and teachers left. It was peaceful, almost too quiet sometimes, but Rayan didn't mind. He liked walking through the echoing halls, seeing the pictures of famous musicians hanging on the walls, and hearing the faint sound of someone practicing in a faraway room. The conservatory felt like another world, a world full of sound and talent that didn't belong to him, but he loved it anyway. While his father worked, Rayan's eyes always drifted toward the main auditorium. That place was magical to him. The smell of polished wood, the dim yellow lights, the red velvet curtains, it all felt like a dream. But what really pulled his heart was the piano that stood in the center of the stage. It was large and black, its surface shining even in the half-darkness. Every time he saw it, he felt an invisible string tugging inside him. He didn't know how to play, not really. He had never had a lesson in his life. But sometimes, when no one was around, he'd quietly walk up to that piano. His father would be mopping another room and the whole hall would be empty. He would run his fingers lightly over the white keys, feeling their coolness, wondering what kind of stories they could tell. One night, his curiosity took over. He pressed one key softly. A warm note filled the air and slowly faded away. His eyes widened. Then he pressed another and another until the empty room began to breathe with sound. It was a small moment, but for Rayan it felt like magic. From that night on, whenever his father wasn't looking, he would sneak in a few minutes with the piano. He began to remember which keys made which sounds. He would hum along, trying to copy the melodies he heard students playing during the day. It wasn't perfect, but it made him feel alive. Sometimes he imagined himself sitting there during the day while everyone listened. But he quickly shook that thought away. People like him didn't belong on that stage. He was the janitor's son, not a student. He didn't have shiny shoes or a uniform. He didn't even own proper clothes, let alone an instrument. His father barely earned enough for rent and food. Still, Rayan couldn't stop dreaming. One evening, when he and his father were finishing their shift, the door of the auditorium opened. A tall man with silver hair walked in, wearing a long coat and carrying a folder. He looked serious, his face sharp and proud. Rayan had seen him before. Everyone at the conservatory knew him. He was the conductor, a man known for his temper and his perfection. The man's voice broke the silence. "Who left this curtain open?" he asked sharply. Arif quickly wiped his hands and bowed slightly. "Sorry, sir. I'll fix it right now." Rayan stood still, clutching the rag in his hand. The man's eyes shifted to him, then to the bucket beside his feet. He said nothing and walked toward the piano. He placed his hand on it as if it belonged only to him. Arif whispered to his son, "Come, we're done here." But as they turned to leave, the man's voice echoed again. "Wait," he said. "Has anyone been touching this piano?" Both father and son froze. "No, sir," Arif answered quickly. "We just clean around it." The conductor frowned. "Someone has been pressing the keys. I can tell. I don't want anyone near this instrument. Understand?" His tone was sharp, full of pride. "This piano costs more than your entire salary for a year. If I ever find out someone's been touching it—" He stopped, his eyes landing on Rayan. The boy's heart pounded in his chest. "Don't touch my piano, poor guy," the man said coldly. Then he turned away. Rayan's face burned. He lowered his eyes and followed his father out. The words stayed in his mind long after they left the building. Poor guy. The way the man said it hurt more than the words themselves. He didn't look angry, he looked disgusted, as if Rayan was something beneath him. That night, as they walked home, his father didn't speak. The streets were quiet except for the sound of their steps on the pavement. Finally, Arif sighed. "You heard him. Don't go near that piano again, understand?" Rayan nodded, though his chest felt heavy. "Yes, Baba." But when he lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling, the sound of those piano notes still echoed in his mind. The conductor's harsh words mixed with the gentle melody he had played earlier. And for some reason, instead of giving up, he felt something growing inside him, a quiet fire. The next few days went on as usual. The students returned to practice. The halls were filled with music again, and Rayan stayed in the background cleaning up after everyone. He kept his distance from the piano, though every time he passed the auditorium his eyes lingered a little too long. One afternoon, while sweeping near the stairs, he heard someone playing a slow tune on a violin. He stopped to listen. The music was soft, full of feeling, almost like a whisper. He followed the sound to a small practice room and peeked inside. A woman stood by the window, her eyes closed as she played. She didn't see him. Her expression was calm, peaceful. The melody felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. When she finished, Rayan clapped softly without thinking. The woman turned, surprised but not angry. "You like music?" she asked gently. He nodded shyly. "Yes, I don't know much, but I like listening," she smiled. "Listening is the first step." Then she packed her violin and left the room. But before leaving, she looked at him again. "You're the janitor's boy, right?" He hesitated, then nodded. "You have kind eyes," she said. "People who love music always do." Her words made him smile. It was the first kind thing anyone had said to him in a long time. That night, as he and his father finished their shift, he couldn't resist. The auditorium was empty again, the lights dim. The piano sat there silently, waiting. He looked around. No one was there. His father was sweeping the far end of the corridor. The fire inside him returned. He stepped onto the stage. His hands trembled as he lifted the piano lid. He sat down slowly, taking a deep breath. He remembered the violin tune from earlier that day and tried to play it. The sound was uneven, but it was there. He closed his eyes, pressing the keys one by one, searching for the right notes. For the first time, he didn't just play random sounds. He played with feeling. He didn't notice the woman standing quietly at the back of the hall. The same violinist had come back to pick up her forgotten scarf. When she saw him sitting there, eyes shut, lost in the music, she didn't interrupt. She simply watched, amazed at how natural he looked. When he finished, he sighed softly, unaware of his audience. Then he stood up and started wiping the piano carefully, just as his father had taught him. From that night, something in the air had changed. The boy who once only cleaned the stage had started to belong to it, even if no one else knew. The piano that was forbidden had become his secret world, and though the conductor's voice still echoed in his memory, "Don't touch my piano, poor guy," those words no longer felt like chains. They felt like a challenge, because somewhere deep inside Rayan had already decided one day he would play again. Not in secret, not in the shadows, but under the same lights that once weren't meant for him. After that night, something inside Rayan changed. He no longer felt like just a janitor's son who worked in the background. Each time he passed the auditorium, he felt a quiet pull, like the piano was calling him. He knew it was wrong to disobey his father's warning, and the conductor's words still echoed in his mind, but his curiosity was stronger than his fear. Days went by, and he began to notice things differently. He listened more carefully when the students practiced. When someone played the piano, he would stop his work for a moment, pretending to tie his shoelace or pick up a rag, just to listen closely. He watched how their fingers moved, how their heads tilted slightly when they felt the music. Sometimes he even hummed softly, copying the tunes later when the hall was empty. The violinist he had met, the kind woman who smiled at him that day, passed him a few times in the corridors after that. She always greeted him politely, sometimes with a small nod. Once she even stopped and said, "You have good ears. I saw you the other night. You were playing with feeling." He froze. "You saw me?" She smiled. "Yes, but don't worry. Your secret is safe." Then she whispered, "Keep playing, but play for yourself, not for others." Those words stayed in his heart. He didn't know her name, but he remembered her soft tone. From that evening on, he started sneaking into the auditorium more often. The building closed at 10, but Rayan and his father stayed until midnight most nights. His father trusted him to clean the side rooms alone while he finished the offices upstairs. As soon as the footsteps faded away, Rayan would quietly slip into the hall. The lights were dim, only a few bulbs glowing near the back, but it was enough. He'd sit at the piano and lift the lid gently, afraid to make even the smallest noise before he was ready. Then slowly he'd begin to play. At first his music was messy and uncertain. Some notes were wrong, others too loud, but each night he got better. He remembered the rhythm of the students' songs, the feeling in their fingers. He would practice those same pieces over and over, learning by sound and memory. Sometimes when he got something right, he smiled to himself and whispered, That's it. It became his secret world. He didn't have sheet music or a teacher, so he created his own way to learn. He drew tiny notes on scraps of paper he found in the trash, marking where his fingers should go. He couldn't read real music, but he made symbols that only he understood. Weeks turned into months. The winter air grew colder, and the conservatory halls were filled with the sound of rehearsals for the upcoming charity concert. The big event was the pride of the school. Famous guests would attend, and the conductor, Mr. Laurent, was working day and night to make sure everything was perfect. He was strict, shouting at students when they missed a note, waving his baton with anger and passion. Rayan often heard him from the hallway and peeked through the small glass window in the door. He admired how confidently the man moved, how the orchestra followed his every command, but he also saw how scared the students were of him. One night, as Rayan practiced alone, he heard a sound from behind him. His hands froze on the keys. He turned quickly. The violinist was standing near the door again, holding a small box in her hands. She smiled when she saw his worried face. "Don't stop," she said softly. "You were doing well." He stood up quickly. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't mean—" She raised her hand to stop him. "Relax, I told you before, your secret is safe." She walked closer and placed the small box on the piano. "These are old music sheets. I don't use them anymore. Maybe you can learn something from them." He looked at the papers as if they were gold. "For me?" She nodded. "For you. But promise me you'll practice quietly. If the conductor finds out, he won't be kind," he promised. From that night on, she became his silent teacher. She didn't sit beside him or give long lessons. Instead, she left small hints for him. A few notes scribbled on the edge of a cleaning cloth or a simple rhythm drawn on a napkin near the stage. It was their quiet friendship, hidden from everyone else. Sometimes she would stand far in the back of the hall and listen while he played. If he made a mistake, she would tap her finger lightly on her violin case, signaling him to slow down. If he did well, she would smile and quietly clap once before leaving. Rayan began to improve faster than even he expected. He could now play short melodies from memory. His hands moved smoothly, his confidence growing with each note. There were times when he got lost in the music, forgetting who he was or where he came from. But not everyone was unaware. Strange rumors began to spread among the night guards and staff. Some said they heard piano sounds late at night when no one was supposed to be there. One cleaner told another, "It must be the ghost of a musician who never left this place." Others laughed, saying it was just the wind or imagination. But the rumor reached the ears of Mr. Laurent. He didn't believe in ghosts, but the idea that someone might be touching his piano without permission made him furious. He called the security guard and said, "Lock the auditorium after 10. If anyone tries to sneak in, I want to know." That night, Rayan didn't know about the new rule. He waited until his father left for the upper floor, then slipped into the hall as usual. He sat down at the piano and began to play softly, lost in his own world. The melody flowed easily now, smooth and full of feeling. Halfway through, the door creaked. The sound startled him. He turned his head, but the light from the hallway blinded him. He froze, heart pounding. A flashlight beam hit his face. "Who's there?" a voice shouted. He recognized the security guard and stood up quickly. "It's just me." The guard frowned when he saw the boy. "What are you doing here? You can't touch that instrument." "I'm sorry," Rayan said quickly. "Please don't tell anyone." "I was only—" the man sighed. "You shouldn't be here. Go back before the conductor finds out. I'll pretend I didn't see you." Rayan nodded gratefully and hurried out, his heart racing. That night he didn't sleep. He kept thinking about what would happen if the conductor discovered him. He could lose his father's job. The next day, while cleaning the hallway, he heard Mr. Laurent talking to the director. "Someone's been tampering with the piano again," the conductor said angrily. "I'll find out who it is. No one disrespects my instrument." Rayan kept his head down, pretending not to hear, but his hands trembled as he wiped the doorknob. For a few days, he stopped playing. The fear was too much. But the silence was unbearable. Every night when the auditorium lights dimmed, he felt an ache in his chest. He missed the piano. It was as if a part of him had gone missing. Then one evening, the violinist found him sitting quietly on the stage steps, staring at the piano from afar. She walked over and said softly, "Why did you stop?" "They might find out," he said in a low voice. If they do, my father will lose his job. I can't risk that. She looked at him kindly. You're not hurting anyone. You're creating beauty in a place that often forgets kindness. Don't let fear silence your gift. He looked up at her, unsure what to say. Here, she said, handing him a small folded paper. This is a simple piece. Learn it by heart. Don't write it down. Just feel it. He opened the paper and saw only a few hand-drawn notes. She smiled. You'll understand once you start playing. That night, he waited until everyone left again. His hands trembled as he opened the piano. He remembered the melody on the paper and started playing slowly, feeling each sound instead of reading. The music came alive like a whisper turning into a song. He didn't notice his father standing at the door watching silently. Arif's eyes softened as he listened. He didn't understand much about music, but he could feel his son's heart in every note. When Rayan finished, he turned and saw his father. He froze. Arif didn't scold him. He just walked up slowly and placed a hand on his shoulder. You really love this, don't you? Rayan nodded, afraid to speak. His father looked around, then said quietly, Be careful. The world doesn't always understand passion, especially when it comes from someone like us. But if something makes you this happy, maybe it's worth protecting. Rayan's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Baba. From that night, his father never asked where he disappeared for those few minutes after cleaning. He simply smiled and let him be. And so Rayan's secret practice continued, quieter, deeper, more passionate than before. The music inside him grew stronger every day, waiting for the moment it could no longer be hidden. He didn't know it yet, but that moment was coming soon, faster than he could imagine. Days turned into weeks, and the conservatory grew busier with each passing morning. Posters for the annual charity concert were placed everywhere, on walls, doors, even on the glass windows near the main entrance. It was the biggest event of the year, where students would perform in front of wealthy guests, music critics, and sponsors. For many, it was their chance to be noticed. Rayan watched the excitement from the shadows as he cleaned the corridors. Everywhere he looked, students carried instruments, music sheets, or whispered nervously about auditions. He had never seen the building so alive. The conductor, Mr. Laurent, was stricter than ever. His voice echoed through the halls almost every day. No mistakes. Feel the rhythm. If you don't understand emotion, you don't understand music, he shouted during rehearsals. Rayan would stop sweeping sometimes and listen through the slightly open doors. The sound of the orchestra moved through him like a wave. Violins, flutes, drums, everything blended so beautifully. He imagined being part of it, sitting behind the piano, letting his fingers dance across the keys. The thought made his heart ache, but he pushed it away. Dreams like that were too far for someone like him. That night, he told his father about the concert while they were cleaning the stage. Baba, everyone's working so hard for that performance, he said softly. His father smiled tiredly. They've practiced their whole lives for this. You and I, we work so they can shine. Rayan nodded but didn't say anything. He looked at the piano again, his piano at least in his heart, and wished for just one chance to show what he could do. The violinist, who had become his silent friend, seemed just as busy these days. She often stayed late, rehearsing her own part for the concert. Even then, she always managed to give Rayan a small nod or leave a short note with advice. Once she wrote, "Remember, every song is a story. Don't just play the notes and tell something with them." Those words guided him. He kept practicing at night, though more carefully now. He had learned several full pieces and even started creating his own melodies, soft, emotional ones that came from his memories. Sometimes when he played, he imagined his late mother smiling somewhere, proud of him. One evening, as he was lost in his music, the auditorium door creaked open again. He quickly stopped playing, thinking it was the guard. But this time it was his secret teacher. She walked slowly toward him, carrying her violin case. "You've improved," she said, sitting in the front row. "Your hands are surer now," he smiled shyly. "I've been practicing a lot," she nodded. "I can tell. You have a gift, Rayan." He looked down, embarrassed. "I'm not supposed to play here." "Maybe not," she said softly. "But sometimes the world doesn't give permission for the right things. We take them anyway." They both smiled. She opened her violin and played a soft tune, asking him to join in. For the first time, they played together, a quiet, wordless duet that filled the empty hall with something warm and alive. When they finished, she looked at him and said, Promise me one thing. If you ever get a chance even once to show what's inside you, take it. He didn't understand fully then. But soon her words would matter more than anything. The next week, something unexpected happened. The main pianist for the concert, a confident student everyone admired, suddenly fell ill. The doctor said she couldn't perform for several weeks. Panic spread among the staff. The conductor was furious. How can we replace her at this stage? He yelled, "We're running out of time." Everyone started suggesting names. Some said they could bring in an outside pianist. Others said they should cancel the piano solo altogether. The conductor rejected every idea. "No one touches that part unless they can do it perfectly," he said. That afternoon, Rayan was cleaning the back of the auditorium when he overheard the violinist talking to one of the assistants. "There is someone who can play," she said softly. "Who?" the assistant asked. She hesitated. "You'll laugh if I tell you. It's the janitor's boy." The assistant's eyes widened. "Are you serious? The boy who cleans here?" "Yes," she said calmly. "I've heard him play. He feels the music more deeply than some of your best students." The assistant looked uncertain. "The conductor will never agree." "Then let him hear it," she replied. Later that evening, while Rayan was wiping the seats, she walked up to him quietly. "I might have made trouble for you," she said, half smiling. He looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I told them about you," she said. "They need a pianist." I couldn't stay silent. His heart skipped a beat. "You told them I can play?" "Yes," she said. "And the conductor wants to hear you tomorrow morning." Rayan froze. The bucket slipped from his hand and rolled on the floor. No, I can't do that." "You can," she said firmly. "You're ready. Don't let fear win." That night he couldn't sleep. His heart raced every time he thought about facing the conductor again. The same man who once said, "Don't touch my piano, poor guy." He imagined the laughter of the students, the angry face of the conductor, and the shame of failing in front of everyone. But then he remembered the violinist's words, "If you ever get a chance, take it." When morning came, his father noticed his nervous face. "What's wrong?" he asked. Rayan hesitated, then told him everything. His father listened quietly, then smiled faintly. "You've worked hard for this moment. If this is your chance, don't run away. Whatever happens, hold your head high." The conservatory looked different that morning. The sunlight through the tall windows made everything shine. Students and staff moved quickly, preparing for the day. Rayan's hands trembled as he walked into the auditorium. The conductor was standing near the piano, arms crossed. His expression unreadable. The violinist stood nearby, watching with quiet hope. "So," the conductor said coldly, "you're the one who's been touching my piano all these nights?" Rayan couldn't speak. His throat felt dry. "Well?" the man pressed. "Yes, sir," he finally said softly. The conductor's face tightened. "You have a lot of nerve. But since someone seems to believe in you, let's hear it. Sit down." Rayan looked at the piano, the same instrument that had once been his secret friend, and felt his heartbeat in his ears. He sat slowly, his legs shaking. The hall was silent. "Play something," the conductor said. He took a deep breath and placed his fingers on the keys. For a moment, his mind went blank. Then he closed his eyes, just like he did when no one was around. The first note came softly, then another, and soon the room filled with gentle music. He forgot about the people watching. He forgot the fear. It was just him and the piano. Every note carried a piece of his heart. The long nights, the quiet tears, the hidden dreams. The melody rose and fell like waves. When he finally stopped, there was complete silence. The conductor stood still, his expression unreadable. Then he turned slightly toward the violinist. "He's untrained," he said slowly. "But there's something there." Rayan looked down, unsure whether it was praise or insult. The conductor continued. "He lacks technique, but he plays with emotion. That's rare." The violinist smiled quietly. "So you'll let him play?" Mr. Laurent hesitated. "No, he's not ready for the stage. This is not a fairy tale. We can't put a janitor's boy in front of donors and critics. It would make the school look foolish." The words hit Rayan hard, but he stayed silent. The violinist looked disappointed. "Then at least let him be your understudy," she said firmly. "If something goes wrong, he'll be ready." After a long pause, the conductor agreed. "Fine. But this stays between us." Rayan walked out of the auditorium that morning with mixed feelings: pride, sadness, and confusion. His father met him outside. "How did it go?" he asked. Rayan smiled faintly. "He said I'm not ready." His father put a hand on his shoulder. "Then keep getting ready. Someday, he won't be able to say no." That night, Rayan went back to the piano, this time not in secret, but with new determination. The hall was dark, but he didn't feel alone anymore. He played the same song he had played for the conductor over and over, until it became perfect. He didn't know that fate was quietly preparing something for him. Because sometimes the stage chooses the player, and not the other way around, and soon the stage would call him again. That night, Rayan could not sleep. The conductor's angry voice kept ringing in his head. "Don't touch my piano, poor guy." The words cut deep. It wasn't just about the piano anymore. It was about how people saw him. No one cared to know who he was or what he felt when he played. They only saw his worn-out shoes, his simple clothes, and the fact that he worked as a janitor's son. He stared at the ceiling, hearing the faint hum of the city outside the small apartment window. His father was asleep on the couch, exhausted after his double shift. The old clock ticked softly. Somewhere between those ticks, Rayan made a silent promise. He would never touch that piano again unless it was truly his moment. But as days passed, that promise began to change into something else. Not anger, but determination. The memory of that melody he had played before being caught haunted him. It was still incomplete. It kept echoing in his head during breakfast while walking to school, even when mopping the floors at night. Each note whispered that his story wasn't over yet. A week later, an announcement appeared on the conservatory's notice board: the annual winter performance. The event everyone waited for: students, parents, teachers, even the media. It was where the best musicians of the academy showcased their art. The winner usually got a scholarship to a famous European institute. Rayan overheard the talk while sweeping the entrance. "This year's conductor will lead the main piece," one of the students said proudly. "He's planning something massive, a solo that will define the show." Another added, "I heard he's using the grand piano again. No one else is allowed to touch it." Rayan smiled faintly. Of course, that piano again. He continued cleaning, pretending not to listen, but inside his thoughts were racing. The winter performance would mean that the piano would be played every day for practice. That meant he would hear real music again, the kind that made him dream. In the following evenings, Rayan stayed longer near the hall, sweeping slower than usual, pretending to work while secretly listening. The students practiced under the conductor's sharp eyes. His voice always filled the room. "No, no. Softer here." The rhythm must breathe. Feel the emotion. His passion was real, but so was his pride. One night after everyone had gone, Rayan entered the hall quietly. He stood in front of the piano again. It looked different now, like a challenge waiting for him. He ran his fingers over the keys gently. The memory of the conductor's angry face flashed in his mind, but he shook it off. He sat down and closed his eyes. Slowly, his fingers began to move. The first notes were unsure, trembling. Then they grew stronger, flowing like water. The melody that had haunted him began to take shape again. This time deeper, fuller, almost alive. His hands moved faster, guided not by thought, but by pure feeling. He didn't notice when the door behind him opened. The security guard, an older man who had known Arif for years, stood there quietly listening. He had never seen anything like it. The boy's playing wasn't perfect, but it had something no training could teach: heart. When the last note faded, Rayan opened his eyes and saw the guard. He froze, his face pale. "Relax, son," the guard whispered with a smile. "You play beautifully. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone." Rayan stood up quickly, bowing his head. "Please, sir. If anyone finds out..." The guard nodded. "I know. But remember what I said. Don't hide your gift forever. Some people wait their whole lives to feel what you just played." That night, for the first time in weeks, Rayan smiled on his way home. Over the next few nights, he returned whenever the hall was empty. Sometimes the cleaning crew left earlier, giving him time to practice. He taught himself using sound alone, repeating pieces he had heard the students play, blending them with his own melodies. He didn't know the names of the chords, but his ears guided him. Each note was a word his heart wanted to speak. One evening, as Rayan practiced, something unexpected happened. A soft clap came from the back of the hall. Startled, he turned around. It wasn't the conductor this time. It was one of the academy's violin students. "I'm sorry," she said, stepping forward. "I didn't mean to scare you. I came to get my scarf and heard someone playing. That was incredible." Rayan stood up, embarrassed. "I'm just cleaning here." She shook her head. "No one plays like that just for cleaning." He said nothing, unsure how to respond. The girl looked at the piano, then at him. "You should play at the winter performance," he almost laughed. "They'd never let me." "Maybe not now," she replied softly, "but someday they will. People can't ignore real music forever." After she left, Rayan sat for a long time, staring at the keys. Her words planted something new inside him, a small seed of courage. As the winter performance day grew closer, tension filled the conservatory. The conductor pushed his students harder each day. The rehearsals grew longer and tempers flared. He was preparing an original piece that he believed would make him famous again. He had once been known across cities, but critics now said his music lacked soul. He was determined to prove them wrong. Ironically, the soul he wanted to show in his music was the very thing Rayan had in his heart. On the final rehearsal night, disaster struck. During a heated argument, the conductor slammed the piano lid too hard, cracking one of the hinges. The technician said it would take hours to fix. Everyone panicked. The performance was the next evening. Frustrated, the conductor stormed out, leaving the piano room locked. That same night, Rayan came to clean as usual. The guard told him about the broken hinge. "They're trying to fix it tomorrow morning," he said. The maestro nearly lost his mind. Rayan nodded quietly. After the guard left, he stood near the door, looking at the locked room. The piano was inside, his dream behind a wooden barrier. He sat outside for a long time, thinking. Then he took out a small screwdriver from his cleaning cart. With slow, careful hands, he loosened the latch. The door creaked open. The hall was dark except for a single light above the stage. Dust floated like tiny stars in the air. Rayan stepped inside. He touched the piano, whispering softly, "I'll take care of you." He opened the lid and studied the damaged hinge. It wasn't serious and just slightly bent. Using a towel and a bit of force, he managed to push it back into place. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. After fixing it, he sat down. His heart beat faster than ever. "Just one song," he said to himself. He began to play. At first slow and then faster, deeper, more alive. Every memory, every hurt, every dream poured through his fingers. The melody rose like wind, filling the hall with warmth and pain and beauty all at once. It was as if the piano itself had been waiting for him. When he finished, he didn't realize someone else had entered the room. Standing in the shadows near the back was the conductor himself. He had returned to check on the instrument and had frozen when he heard the music. He stood there in silence, unable to move. Rayan looked up suddenly and saw him. His hands froze midair. The silence that followed felt heavier than any sound. The conductor stepped forward slowly, his face unreadable. "Who taught you to play like that?" he asked quietly. Rayan didn't answer. His voice barely came out. "No one, sir. I just—" "Listen." The man looked at the piano, then back at the boy. "Do you know what you just played?" Rayan shook his head. "That was the piece I've been trying to compose for weeks," the conductor said softly. "The same one I thought no one could understand." He paused, staring at the boy again. "Tomorrow, come here before the performance," he said finally, his tone low but firm. "I want to see you play it again." Rayan's heart pounded. "But sir, just come," the conductor interrupted, then turned and walked away. When the door closed, Rayan sat there for a long time, not sure if he had just been forgiven or tested. Outside, the night was quiet. The cold air brushed his face as he walked home, the sound of the piano still echoing in his ears. Something was about to change. He could feel it. The morning of the winter performance arrived with a pale golden sun peeking over the city. Inside the conservatory, the halls were busier than ever. Students ran back and forth carrying sheet music, tuning instruments and fixing their costumes. The air smelled like fresh polish, coffee, and nervous excitement. Rayan stood outside the auditorium, holding the edge of his cleaning cart. He had been there since early morning, helping his father arrange chairs and clean the floor. The conductor's words from last night repeated in his head. "Come before the performance." He still didn't know if that had been an invitation or a warning. But something inside him told him to go. When the crowd finally cleared, Rayan walked toward the grand piano. The conductor was there, standing alone, checking the lights and adjusting the microphone. His face looked calmer today, as if something had shifted inside him. Rayan hesitated near the doorway. The man looked up. "You came," he said simply. Rayan nodded. "Good. Sit." The boy walked slowly to the piano. His hands were trembling, not from fear but from the weight of the moment. The conductor folded his arms. "Play what you played last night." Rayan took a deep breath and touched the keys. The first few notes came out soft, uncertain, then the melody began to flow again. The same music that had filled the empty hall now floated in the morning light, gentler but full of the same feeling. The conductor closed his eyes as he listened. When Rayan finished, silence hung in the air. After a moment, the man spoke quietly. "You have what most musicians spend their whole lives searching for: emotion. You play like someone who feels every note." Rayan lowered his head. "I didn't mean to break rules, sir." The conductor sighed. "Sometimes rules are broken by the right people. Listen, tonight's performance will have a final solo. My original pianist fell sick last night. I was planning to cancel that part." Rayan looked up quickly, unsure what he meant. The conductor continued. "You will play instead." The words hit him like thunder. "Me? But sir, I can't read notes." "I'm not trained. They'll laugh at me." "They might," the man said softly. "But they will also listen." "That's all that matters." Rayan's chest tightened. He looked at the shiny black piano, its surface reflecting the morning sun. He had dreamed of playing on that stage so many times, but never believed it would happen. The conductor placed a hand on his shoulder. "Don't think too much. Just play from your heart. That's where real music comes from." All day, Rayan helped backstage while his heart raced with a mix of fear and excitement. His father had no idea what was coming. He only knew his son was quieter than usual. Evening arrived, and the hall filled with people in elegant clothes. The audience buzzed with whispers, their voices blending into a soft hum of anticipation. Cameras flashed, programs rustled, and the stage lights glowed warmly over the grand piano. Arif stood at the side of the stage, proud just to be helping as part of the maintenance crew. He never imagined that his son was about to walk onto the same stage. The orchestra began with its first few pieces: violin quartets, choral numbers, and a few solo performances. Applause followed each one. Then came the conductor's turn. He stepped onto the stage, bowing with grace and confidence. "Tonight," he announced, "our final act will be something unexpected. A piece that was born not from study but from spirit. Music that reminds us where beauty truly comes from." The audience murmured, curious. Then, to everyone's surprise, the conductor gestured toward the side door. Rayan walked out slowly. His hands shook and his heart pounded so loudly he thought the microphone might catch it. He could feel hundreds of eyes on him. Some people in the front row whispered, "Isn't that the janitor's boy? What is he doing here?" Arif's broom slipped from his hands as he froze in disbelief. The conductor nodded at him from the side. "Go ahead." Rayan sat at the piano. The keys gleamed under the lights, waiting for his touch. He closed his eyes. For a moment he forgot the crowd, the whispers, even his fear. He remembered the long nights cleaning the hall, the echo of the first note he ever played, and the dream that had lived quietly in his heart. Then, he began. The first sound was soft, like the beginning of a memory. Then it grew stronger, layered with emotion. The melody rose and fell like waves, sometimes gentle, sometimes fierce. His fingers danced across the keys, not perfect, but full of truth. Every note told a story of struggle, of silence, of the beauty hiding in forgotten corners. The hall fell completely silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. As he played, tears formed in the eyes of some in the audience. They could feel it too, the honesty, the depth, the voice of someone who had nothing but gave everything. Halfway through the piece, Rayan's father finally found his breath again. His eyes filled with pride and disbelief. That was his son, his quiet boy, playing before the world like he was born for this moment. When the final note lingered in the air, Rayan lifted his hand slowly from the keys. The sound faded, leaving a silence so pure it felt sacred. For a few seconds, no one moved. Then someone began to clap. And then everyone. The applause grew louder, stronger, until the whole hall was on its feet. People shouted, "Bravo!" and whistled. Cameras flashed. The conductor stepped forward, smiling, and placed a hand on Rayan's shoulder. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said into the microphone, Remember this name. You may not find it on our student list, but you'll hear it in music for years to come." Rayan looked at the cheering crowd, dazed, unsure if it was real. But what touched him most was his father's face, wet with tears, shining with pride.